Hello, hello. It is Wednesday. It is our day for culture and astrology, and we have a very special guest, Bonnie Gillespie. Am I saying your name right?
Are indeed.
Okay. So you told me this before we got on air, but I wanted can we tell the viewers how you found the show and why you decided you wanted to be a guest?
Oh my God. I found the show because I had previously bought your book on planetary remediation. So I was on your mailing list and I saw an email come out with new updates on YouTube channel. And I went over and said, hang on, what is this conversation going on about? Can we find racism in the chart? Because that's the kind of question I would like to ask. Like I want to know where do we find set points in a chart, and is it always going to be true? I love tracking patterns. So I went down the rabbit hole and just watched every episode that I could of your conversations together, as well as some others on your channel. And I became obsessed and started commenting. And then you replied to one of the comments and said, we should do this. And I'm like, we should do this. Yes.
Nice. Well, so you're in show business, just so people know who you are. Well, what is your sun, moon, and rising?
I am Libra moon, Libra rising, and Cancer sun.
Oh, fascinating. So does that put your Cancer sun in the 10th?
It does indeed, along with my Mercury, Mars, and obviously midheaven. I have 15 natal squares.
50, only 15? No.
I'm mad that it wasn't 16 because, like, what a missed opportunity. 16 would have been a square. Like, come on. Ah, it's right there.
Maybe if you went at 16, you'd have seven people on your team. Oh wait, you have a team of people you work with, and so you're well known for a book called Self-Management for Actors, right?
I am indeed. That is,
Ricky, I think, don't you want this book? Since you're an actor now?
this is usually how most people find me. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is
That's so
true.
cool. Well, okay, well, we're so happy to have you. You have picked the topic of astrological remediation. Now, Ricky has studied that topic. I know a thing or two about remediation. Was there something specific you wanted to bring up about remediation?
So, what I do when I get someone's chart is I use a sophisticated system of yays and boos because I try to make everything as low friction as possible. So, like planetary remediation becomes chart harmony because I don't want to scare the people. Astrology is overwhelming. I learned astrology as a child. So, growing up in it, I want to keep it as childlike glee as possible so that people can maybe be a little disarmed from their defenses about it. And I like to take a look at using my sophisticated system of yays and boos the strength of the planets in someone's chart. Like where do they have things that are pushing against, where do they have things that they are fighting with, and I want to help them make those planets capable of doing more for them than against them. And this is as someone with a fallen Mars in the 10th house. Like I got a really cranky day chart Mars, and I've spent a life learning how to get Mars to be more on my side and less, I need to cut a bitch and you are that bitch. Like I needed to that make that stop. So it came out of necessity. And so for me, I like to take a look at other people's charts, see what they might be in need of, but I listen to their symptoms usually from outside in, which is an acting technique. There's outside in or inside out. Most people don't come to me saying, I have a debilitated whatever, but they'll come to me saying, I have these symptoms, and I'll take a look at the chart and say, yeah, that's a symptom of the debilitated whatever. And so doing chart harmony or planetary remediation to help get things in better shape ends up being such a low friction, easygoing fix. And it's a lot easier than people expect it to be. Sometimes it's just wearing the color of the planet that they're looking to connect with.
Absolutely. So what degree is your Mars?
25, 26.
Wow.
Let me
It's
look.
it's conjunct my Mars and square Ricky's Mars.
Ooh.
So we're gonna
It is 2546. My Mercury is 2439, and my sun and midheaven are both 18 degrees. It's 1859 and 1829. And
wow.
my moon is 18, rising 16, Jupiter in Libra 26, Uranus in Libra 5 degrees.
Wow, so did you wait till Mars was past all that to be on the show?
Yes, I did not reach out to you until Mars went back into Leo and I could finally feel, because I'm also in a Mars perfected year. So I'm just like, ouch, ouch, ouch for months over here.
Yeah, interesting.
Mm.
So, Ricky, do you want Bonnie's chart?
Sure.
Okay, 7 11 70. I love that because it's 071170. We fold it in half and it's the same. I love it. 7/11/70, 1:41 p.m. East Point, Georgia.
Okay, 1:41. Is that what you said? PM?
1:41 p.m. Yep.
So what I hear you saying is that you're interested in remediation in general, because you're interested in harmonizing difficult things. Now,
Well, I feel like I have things in my chart that have been challenging, and everything gets smoother when I work with the planets rather than letting them push against each other in a stressful way.
yeah. Well, let's talk about the culture of show business where you live, because that's a culture, right?
Yeah.
So, in the culture of show business, is it good to have a hard or like a, I wouldn't say you have a hard Mars because it's debilitated, it's not in its own sign, but it is in the 10th house, which makes it strong, and it's square a few things. So it's kind of you kind of have a strong, forceful Mars mania pattern, we could say, when the moon hits that square, like you're very martial, you know. So
Mhm.
does show business support, does the culture that you're in support martial behaviors or, and Ricky, of course, you're in show business as well. So like, what do you think? Does show business support martial behaviors?
Depends on the role. Depends on who you are in the industry. So yes and no. I specifically work with actors mostly. I also work with a few writers, directors, producers, agents, all kinds, but mostly actors. The culture is dependent upon actors not knowing how much power they actually have. Because as soon as actors realize how much power they have, everything gets turned upside down in terms of the producers and the studios and where the money is and all the power that way. And I think that's really what spoke to me in a conversation the two of you had, in which Ricky, you specifically mentioned Black men using their moon to lead, and maybe white men using the sun to lead. And I looked at that and went, okay, let's talk about the more lunar versus the more solar. And I started looking at that for show business. And I was like, based on the role you're in, leading from your moon is actually the stronger choice in a lot of ways. And so that's kind of what got me bringing all of that together. That yeah, there definitely is a culture of where strength is important, but depending on who you are in the conversation, how much you're allowed to use it.
Any thoughts on that, Ricky? Show business and martialism?
From the research I've done, one of the things that was consistent across people in show business was a strong Mars. In the sense it's competitive, right? It's not for everyone. People go and they get knocked down. If you don't have a strong Mars and you get knocked down, right, you quit.
That's so true.
Yeah. So the other thing that's interesting to me is I always like to acknowledge, and I think it's at the heart of what we're talking about, is that each of us approach astrology and the way we think about charts and the way we think about remediation through the lens of culture. And but more importantly, through the lens of our charts, through the lens of culture. Because just in like I can hear the Cancer and I could hear the Libra, balancing. But I have a Cancer moon, strongest planet in my chart, so I'm making fun of myself, kinda, right? But it's like in order for one of the ways for Cancer to be most useful is if people are in need.
Mm.
And so sometimes our frame of reference put people in more need than they actually need to be. Okay. And like the way we're talking about it, remediation, even in the word, is like something needs to be remediated. But then when we hop back to talking about harmonizing, in a sense, at least for me, we're saying the same thing, but I think the nuance in the way we're saying it is is complicated. It's complicated. And for me, my first thing is I don't think there's ever anything wrong.
Mhm.
It's like for me, that's first and foremost. And so the term remediation, again, I understand where it comes from, but it's tricky. It's tricky. And and I do think about hard aspects as discord, but that doesn't mean bad, right? It's more about how someone deals with the discord. It's like if you see someone and they have a gnarly scar, you know, that's discord. We don't right? And we know that they had to go through some kind of healing process, but at least for me, I'm curious to like, what happened? And what was the process, and who are you because of what happened?
I just want to build on what you guys are talking about. Like, I love your point, Bonnie, of that it depends on what role you're playing. Like, I think if you have a martial role in movies, like if you're a warrior, or like, it makes me think of The Rock. He's like, he was a wrestler and then became an action, or like a action movie star. Like, of course, him having a strong Mars is integral to his role in show business. So, that makes me think of our role in culture in general. Like, every village has people of different roles, and that's what makes the village go around, right? Like, we need people to go out and hunt the bison, to actually stab the thing, and then we need people to cook the bison, and like, so you know I guess, is your role in the village to be nice, or is it to be fierce? And I think, that's kind of what you're bringing up there.
And even your role in the process, so not even just the kind of characters you play, although that is a part of it as well. It's, are you someone who also produces? Are you someone who also writes? Are you someone who loves to direct, do your own stunts? Like the types of things that are more interesting to some and not to others, can, I think, also be tracked by the condition of their Mars. Yeah.
Yeah, I find producers in show business to be very martial. Like,
Mhm.
they're like the bosses in creative arts, so it's like I have a Sun square Mars, and not to make this about me, but like I'll be super nice. I have a Moon and Pisces square Neptune. I'm the nicest person to work with. And then I have a transit to my Sun square Mars. I'm like, everyone get it, like I just freak out, and it's like that's the producer in me though. And I think martial people do end up at the top in managerial based positions because of the heatedness with which they take issue with things, and I think so you can rise to the top because of being, I guess Ricky's calling it competitive, but I would say it's like you're passionate about how things go down in some ways too.
For sure that, but also the pattern that I noticed most in, the more out I became about my woo upbringing, the more people I would look into their charts. And I was like, I only knew people with sun in 10th or sun in 5th, and occasionally sun in 1st. Those were the three houses that just always had the sun. And then when I started having clients that are not in show business, I went, oh, okay. So it's not that all people have suns in these places. It's that of course is my fan base, my showbiz collective of people, because you're going to have your sun in a place that it likes to be seen, and that it likes that, maybe some of that Mars competition as well.
Do you think playing your role, I'm asking both of you, do you think playing your specific role in your village is a remedy?
I think it's the only remedy,
Yeah.
especially if you have 10th house placements. But I think it's well, I will say it's a remedy for the 10th house. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think being forced into the wrong role for your temperament would make dis-ease occur, right? Like that's when, if you're a martial person in a very Venusian job, like you're a preschool teacher, and then you're traveling, you keep yelling at the kids, it's like you're in the wrong role for your chart, kind of thing.
Well, I think it depends. I think if we took we made a list of all the Martians, we would see that there are Martians that are really good school teachers. We might not see a whole bunch, but we would see in the nature of their school teaching would be very Martian. And I think if we go through every single job, profession, vocation, we'll see a range of Mars, Neptune. There'll be other things obviously mixed in, but there'll be something about the quality of the way they do things that comes out. It's like the archetypes we see in movies, right? There's the gym teacher. That's that would be might be a good place to put the Mars. And I do like the idea of talking about Mars people, etc. And it's obvious to see in charts when Mars is prominent in the chart, people are going to have to. There's greater consequences for better or worse with dealing with the Mars. No, because someone can have a powerful Mars and they can be masterful at dealing with the Mars. Think of a butcher, who's so graceful with his with his cutlery, and that he just cuts the meat perfectly, right? It's like, or martial artists, you know, 10th degree black belts, right? Is that the life has been focused on the mastery of Mars. Or I think of a talented heart surgeon. So I think for me, it's about with all of the planets, they're all different tools. And another way to think of remediation is mastery of the tools.
Wow.
Then we don't have to make anyone wrong. It's always about moving towards mastery.
Yeah, what I say about Mars and Cancer is, it's like you Mars comes and says, "Hi, I'm here to go to war. With what will you equip me?" And Cancer goes, "Here's a kitten." And, technically those claws cut like that. Sure, that's great. But at the same time, what would Mars prefer to have? Broadsword, flamethrower, give
I don't know. I
oh,
don't
okay,
know. I
cool.
don't know. I live with two Mars. I live with two Mars in Cancer, my son and my wife. And I think I understand from the tradition where it comes from, and there is something. The way my teacher talks about it, it's that when planets are debilitated or in detriment, is that they have to express with more nuance.
Yeah,
And one of the things I can't agree with is when there's discord, it does require more effort. But we can't make effort bad and ease good, and I think that's the difficulty. And when my son was born, I was in the hospital and I was looking at the chart and I was like, man, right? Because my wife was in labor, so I was like, he's not gonna have any planets and fire signs. And I was like, oh man, this is gonna be rough. But I was like, oh, the timing of it, he's gonna be a Sag rising, right? Ah, and I'm waiting the beginning of Sag rising, beginning of Sag. I'm just waiting, sitting in the room, waiting, right? And finally they call me in the room and we go through all the kerfuffle and he's born at 0 degrees Capricorn rising. So I'm like, oh, the kid's gonna have just like no fire in his chart. But in my system, I do look a lot at planetary strength, and his strongest planet is Mars in Cancer, right? Opposed Pluto. So this is supposed to be something that's scary, but the fact that his father was a professional football player and has Pluto in the first also, and has some ease around this combination and is a Cancer moon, right? That there's an opportunity for how the Mars expresses to not have to express so much discord because it's able to be worked out in the early environment. And I even think there's certain things in life where in order to be effective, we need Mars in Cancer energy.
for sure. For sure. All the placements are necessary collectively. I think of chart harmony, my words for planetary remediation, as a way for you to let yourself off the hook if you really struggle with the way that you keep falling into that trap, where again, like working inside out or outside in, that trap is usually something we can point to in the chart of, well, that's just this expressing, and you've decided to judge that, and your ability to judge that as something more neutral, or something that, oh, it's going to require me to use more of my energy because of this condition, is going to make your life feel a little less exhausting and give you an overall experience of enoughness. Which is, enoughness is what I always talk about with actors, of we're not trying to get you confident. We're trying to get you from a place of enoughness, so that whatever happens, you go in for that audition, you get it, don't get it, doesn't matter. You are enough. You're not sourced from what happens when you go in that room, or anywhere else.
Yeah. So yeah, this is like fun. I got my
I feel
Mars.
like God sent you to be funny. And I'm like, oh, I like him. I've learned so much from
Good
Bonnie.
God. No, we'll hope it's a good God.
Well, I want to say something about remediation. It's a repetitive process. When we talk about like, you have to look at concepts like enoughness, because you might be an actor and you go into a transit to your Mars, and then you get out of shape, internally, and then we have to remedy and transmute that Mars as the transit's coming in, and then it passes, and then you go along, and then another audition happens, and then you get out of shape with your transit, and it's like I think remediation can tire people out because it's something we do repetitively. That's why the ending, like eation, is like the process of providing remedies. It's not like we do a remedy once. So I mean, I don't know why what you said made me think of that, of just like we have to transmute again and again and again to really get a chart into harmony, because the planets will, you know, rank on you again and again. The yogis know this because they constantly are doing yoga to try to, you know, harmonize basically.
Balance is a constant state of motion. And I think that's something I really didn't get for myself until I was in my 40s. And that's then when I started going, okay, got it. I'm starting to understand that I've been very cardinal led, and maybe I need to lean into the mutable. Maybe I need to lean into places where I'm not as comfortable in my own chart to find the answers to everything that I'm bumping up against. And I think that was largely part of the process that led me to looking under the hood more for whatever someone's being stressed out by. And just being able to say, like, it's like brushing your teeth. You're never done. Like that's not something that you get
Well,
done with.
it makes me think about sharks. If sharks don't swim forward, they die. Have you ever heard of this? And
Yeah.
they say that anyone who's not growing is dying. Anything that is not growing is dying. And so, like, what we do at the Moira Press is we sharpen the saw every day, which is we go out from 10:30 to 11:30 at night, and we basically get smarter on some topic every night, because it's like we're always swimming forward, because we don't want to stop and then like basically die, like in some ways, you know, spiritually. So I think what you're saying there is like you have to, like, would you say balance is a process or balance is emotion? Like I like that.
Balance is constant motion. Like it is a series of micro adjustments that are always happening, even on a cellular level. The balance is just movement. And when I allowed myself to believe that and go, oh, my first house is not cardinal, it is actually really mutable. And then I went, well, we're all mutable. All of our cells, we're constantly mutable. And just getting into that headspace helped me overcome a lot of the places where I felt stressed out by my chart.
What do you think of that, Ricky? Balance is constant adjustment.
Well, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts here, but to me, it's interesting. I've noticed is like when we talk about life or we talk about astrology, I think sometimes we forget that we are speaking from our own charts.
Always.
You know, but I think but sometimes we state things as truths, as if that's the way things are, and they are. I believe that they are truths for us through our own process, but they're not universal truths. And I stay make an attempt at least to stay super sensitive to like when like the filter between truth and how it's being filtered through my experiences in my chart. Because my experience is like we're on a loop, you know, and it could be a loop, or also I think I think about it related to the scales, to Libra, in the sense that balance is constant motion. It is. If you think about the scales, right? You're trying to get the scales right, and it's all no, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Or even if we think of another Libra image of homeostasis, this constant process. But if we get stuck in the process of homeostasis, we forget the purpose of homeostasis, right? So we're constantly doing this, but we're not going anywhere. And so even the idea of remediation or enough, to me, at least my cultural background, that's not enough. Right. And when I say culture, I mean that in many ways, but specifically on the football field. Right. And it's like to us, it's a constant looking for moving towards mastery. And it does kind of look like this, but the motion of it isn't balance. And I don't even think it's harmony. It's progress.
Interesting. Okay, so let's I love those thoughts, Ricky. So let's move on to Venus and say, what is it is I don't know why I'm going to the culture of show business, because we've never had the culture of a certain career. We have talked about culture of everything else, but I just want to be like, in the culture of show business, I bet Venus is like all over the place. Like we
All
don't
over the
really,
place.
do we need to remedy Venus in show business, or is it just
Well, what I remind people of when we do Venus work is Venus loves to receive, Venus is magnetic, and Venus doesn't believe that we are required to go do something and earn whatever it is that comes to us. And so any place that's trying to tell you you have to behave a certain way, look a certain way, weigh a certain weight, be a certain, shoot up your face with whatever kind of chemicals, like all of those messages, they're not coming from Venus. And so a lot of what I do in those conversations is just, well, where is that coming from? Is that Daddy Saturn saying we lack? Is it Mercury saying there's so many different messages that we're paying attention to simultaneously, and it's just a little like a fugue at some point? I mean, it's certainly not Venus, because Venus is not going to tell you that you need to behave your way into deserving. Venus says, I deserve because I am. And so let it come to me. At least that's, and I'm very cognizant now of leading from my chart as I speak and using absolutes as much as I do. I'm like, oh yeah, there's lots of that in me. I'm going to now be working on that just from this conversation, because that is a biggie for me.
Well, Ricky has Venus conjunct Mars, so I don't even know what to do with this. He's like, I don't need to do anything. Wait, but now I'm confused
Can
now.
you separate your Mars from your Venus when they're conjunct?
No. Mm-mm.
Because I can't separate my Mercury from Mars because they're conjunct. I'm like, that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Do you swear a lot? Do you swear a lot, Bonnie?
Fuck yeah.
This is why I make adult entertainment. Astrology is not for babies. No, but no, okay, no, I like that. I really like that. It's not Saturnian, it's not martial. In fact, it's opposite of Mars. Like if you look at Aries and Scorpio Mars ruled signs, those opposite signs are Libra and Taurus, which are Venus ruled signs. And in remediation, a lot we look to opposites. So we would say that the opposite of martialism is Venusianism, and where you're right, like it's just about the sweetness of life, like period, right? Like I got yelled at earlier, so I'm gonna eat a piece of candy. I'm just gonna I'm gonna remember that life is still sweet. But yeah, I guess in some cultures, in some businesses that it's not Saturnian but I think I would expect show business to be sounds like it's kind of martial where it's like you need to cut yourself up and do surgeries and this and that.
It's Mars and Sun. Like we reward. I mean, if this is true, I mean, I would say dominant culture and white privilege in general, it's we reward the cishet, straight, white, able-bodied Christian male. Like it's the like do the sun stuff, do the martial stuff. Yes, those things together are going to be the competition that is required to show up like that. And we're in a time where we're being asked to look at what else could be true in terms of what we reward. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you consider yourself to be in show business, Ricky?
I was for sure. Sport athletics is definitely a form of show business, and I've done some TV stuff. I get some little checks from from Screen Actors Guild. But one thing about Venus, I have a different take on Venus. I actually do think that, in a sense, Venus does motivate us to do things to please other people.
Oh, sure.
For my right, so and if but so the Venus remediation, I think, in show business is powerful. It's like hell yeah. You know, a simple way I think about Venus is our taste. You know, we have taste in food, we have taste in clothes, we have taste in people. You know, typically if we like someone or like something, then we're more willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. Right? Which means we're motivated to take action based off of them being happy with us, them liking us. And I think the issue with Venus is when it's about, to me, remediation of Venus is about refining our tastes. Because we all have, even culturally, we have certain things that are supposed to feel good, certain things that aren't supposed to feel good. And this is where I can definitely connect to Venus being in detriment in the sign of Aries. I was talking to my friend and this phrase came to my head and I said, I'm most at peace, right, on the battlefield. Right? And for most people, that's an uncomfortable place to be. But for me, it's a source of joy and love and warm and fuzzies. Yeah. But a good fight, I love it. I just love it. But if I was pretending to be something else because I thought it wasn't right or good to have to like those things, then I would be adjusting myself, right, and giving people and things the benefit of the doubt that didn't return the Venus feeling back to me. And that's where the remediation would need to occur. And it's not to make me more calm, right? It's to make me more selective of the people that I surround myself with, is that they like it a little bit hot.
Yeah,
I love
Venus
that.
in Aries likes it hot. Okay.
I love that.
Um, wow, interesting. So let's see. Mercury is an interesting one in show business because you have to, in that culture, you have to be a good speaker, don't you think? I mean, depending on your role, I suppose, right? Like back to the role thing. Um, but do you remedy people because you work with actors? Do you remedy people who have communication disorders or
Oh, I would say I see more Pisces Mercuries than any other sign. I also work with more Gemini risings than anything else I've noticed.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. The thing with Mercury in rough shape, if we go back to the sophisticated system of yays and boos, if on paper Mercury doesn't look like it's in great shape, what I find is it's just a more creative human. It's someone who's had to find other ways to communicate than what might be expected of them in whatever environment or culture they come up through. And a lot of the reason people choose show business is because they're finally understood where they maybe weren't in their upbringing.
Hmm.
And so a debilitated Mercury can actually be incredibly helpful for someone in show business because they're going to think outside the box. There's also the chart of the comedian tends to have Uranus first house or a debilitated Mercury, like that, because those are things that you have to, like all my natal squares, you have to problem solve your way out of stuff that may seem harder at different times in your life, and that tends to make you more creative and think on your feet and able to pull out these amazing phrases that people remember. Lots of that.
I never thought of that, but one of the things about stars, because I look at a lot of stars charts, not like I don't look at famous people's charts like I know them, but I do look at what makes them special acting or why they act so quote unquote weird or unique that they would become famous for how they act, like, and we're not talking fake acting, we're talking acting your chart out, and it's like absolutely you see the weirdest charts with, I love the Mercuries of rappers like Tech Nine. Have you ever seen his Mercury? Oh my God. He has like a Mercury, Mars, Pluto, Uranus, Jupiter square. I mean, he's like his Mercury is insane, and it's like he's made a whole business out of his Mercury being insane, basically. And so I really love looking at like rappers and things like that who have these very special communication styles. Have you ever been a growler in a metal band, Bonnie?
Yeah, that is not one of my many jobs. No.
With your Mercury Mars conjunction? I just didn't know. Okay. Have you ever been an auctioneer?
No.
No. Do you talk a lot?
I was a DJ for 7 years, so yeah.
Yeah, Mercury Mars to me is definitely a content creator, because it is passionate Mercury, um, has a lot to say. Have you had to learn to like be quiet, be quiet?
I am right now physically doing things to make me remember that I am supposed to be 1/3 of this conversation, not 9/10 of it.
Oh
It
my God,
is.
I have a Mercury square Mars too, and I have to do things too to not talk the whole time. Like it's real. Mercury Mars is real. But it makes great authors because they have enough content coming out to write books and things like that.
Yes. Yes. Emily Dickinson level number of journals filled and things that will only be discovered when I die. People are like, oh my God, she wrote so much.
Nice. Your Mercury's chill compared to ours, isn't it, Ricky?
Oh yeah, my Mercury's in, according to conventional astrology, my Mercury's in pretty bad shape.
No, I love your Mercury, but you're also a Gemini sun, so you are mercurial.
But I think that's more difficult when Mercury is dealing with a lot of hard aspects in someone who's a Gemini, because they have they have to work harder to be themselves.
Yeah, he has a Mercury, Saturn, Uranus T square.
Oh, wow.
So he's
So,
Mercury in Taurus,
so
square
creative.
Saturn and Leo, opposite Uranus. Okay.
But like when I think of the bullet points of of what I know of your life, Ricky, I'm like, yes, all that.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you feel like, well, Yeah, I love this point you're making, Bonnie, that in the culture of show business, uniqueness is the job.
It's rewarded. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. It's like being in the circus. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm only one third of this conversation. Does anyone, I can keep it going though, but does anyone have any bullet points or talking points they would like to hit?
Well, I think there's the way I think about it is if we're talking about showbiz, um that's a filter. So I think we can use astrological symbols, maybe even one to start with, to describe what is showbiz. Because in that film or that filter, everyone that's in showbiz has to be able to vibrate on that frequency, otherwise they wouldn't be attracted to showbiz.
I go with Neptune.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I had on my mind. And even I lived in LA for several years, and
Oh, cool.
so it's so
It
Neptune.
is absolutely a glamour.
Yeah,
Yep. It
yeah,
is constantly lying to you and unapologetically. I love it so much. I mean, I love it because I can have a surface conversation with somebody at a party for 10 minutes and we are best friends. And the business requires that we become intimate with strangers so that we can shoot the next scene. Like we meet and then we're in a love scene together. Like it these days now we have intimacy coordinators, but I come from acting in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Like that was not a thing.
I need intimacy. Just kidding. My chart's way too intimate. I've decided I've decided not to be a narcissist, but to be a histrionic personality disorder. What do you think of that? That's when you're overly emotional about everything and overly intimate, basically.
So just
yeah.
this.
What?
But to me, even if that's manifesting, if someone owns it and does it well, right? If we're watching a movie and someone owns whatever it is, they own it and they do it well, right? They get rewarded for that.
But that's enoughness. That's
Yeah,
charisma. It's the I am who I am and I'm unapologetic about it. Like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, wait, is okay, is show business a culture of narcissism?
Okay, so are we talking about the money people or are we just talking about actors?
Oh, interesting. The actors.
Gosh, so much of the actor story is I chose show business because I wasn't getting the love that I needed otherwise. And at least through applause or awards or scandal, I can get that attention and uh, that Leo stuff fed.
So maybe it's a remedy for like not getting seen enough. And so then it's like because they're making up for lost time, it comes out looking
Yeah.
what people would call narciss. I have nothing against narcissists. I love them because
No,
I'm in show
I'm
business.
married
I'm
to
like,
one.
get
It's
over
fine.
here and work for us. We love you. But like the victim empath types, I'm like, I don't know if you're strong enough for the camera.
Well,
But
it's like, well, showbiz gives you permission to be all the things that you weren't allowed to be otherwise.
interesting.
Yeah, it feels very Neptune.
Is there too muchness? If there's enoughness, is there too muchness?
Sure.
Um, Okay. So, I think that's actually a good question. I know we're j kind of joking, but it's like in certain industries, and you know, Bill or Ricky, I was thinking about having my main producer on, Billy Anderson. He's like a huge producer in metal culture, and I was gonna maybe have him on to talk about metal culture and how that's different than, you know, just regular culture. And we've never looked into subcultures artistically. We've looked into different like racial and ethnic cultures, but we've never looked into the culture of different businesses or different industries or different music genres. And it's like, do you guys think that's a valid topic? Like, that is the culture of show business a valid topic for culture and astrology?
I think so, 100%. Because anytime we're using the word culture, right, the reason we use the word culture is because we're talking about something, an entity. And I think it always is going to add a level of insight to understanding why someone was attracted to this. Because there's the culture we grow up in, and then there's the culture that we gravitate towards. And I think that's the distinction, but we're talking about, I think, the same thing. And it's kind of like, what is what do we fall into, and then also what is innate that we find ourselves attracted to that hopefully gives us freer expression to express our chart and potentials in our chart. And I think of as a football player, no doubt, right, that Mars, eighth house, Aries, Venus, right, that culture allowed those parts of my chart to grow, and that's culture comes from cultivated, right? But there are other parts of myself that the culture, oppressed and suppressed, and it wasn't allowed to grow. So I think appreciating where we've come from, but also appreciating the possibilities of where we can go to allow fuller expression of our potentials, I think that's very useful.
I love what you're saying there. Oh my God, like my heart is singing right now because it's like I think what we could say about show business is it's a culture in where Leonian people can thrive and be normal, actually. Whereas in other cultures or other industries, being a Leo is seen as self-involved. But like in show business, it's a culture where these Leo people can literally relax, you know. Um,
Thrive.
Absolutely.
I like that. Thrive. I think that's the ideal, right? Is finding the ideal environment to
yeah.
thrive.
So Bonnie, why do you think your chart gravitated towards the culture of show business?
10th house sun for real. Jupiter first house, absolutely. Um, chart ruler Venus, 29 degrees Leo on Black Moon Lilith and Regulus. I don't think it would have been possible for me to avoid some sort of public facing career. Um, and I started out as an actor. I was a kid actor. Um, yeah, but that Venus 11th house really shows me how much more energized I am when I'm helping someone else live their dreams, way more than pursuing any of mine.
Are you acting right now?
No, 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 not for
Are
a
you
long.
acting like yourself?
Oh, am I acting right now? I thought you meant like, am I pursuing acting?
No.
Not for.
But like
Okay.
in this moment, are you acting?
I mean, now that's a big. Is everybody always at some point? Like I like to say there's circles of safety, and the closer in we are in our circles of safety, the more our authentic selves we're being. But when we're dealing with people that we don't yet know, or something that's going to be seen by the public, there's a certain layer of protection that we don't want it to look like a layer of protection. So it instead looks like the show we're putting on. I would say I'm never not doing my Neptune show business stuff.
Okay, so yeah, this is fascinating. This is like my mind is completely blown by how amazing this conversation is. I just want to take a moment and say thank you.
Oh,
Yeah. So this is this is an example. Bonnie's chart, like, and I think acting. First thing that comes to my mind is the first house. And so, is someone acting right now? If there's a lot of planets in the first house, if there's one, if there's first house is active, the question is yes, 100% yes. And then the story about public and private, it's like so indicative of the moon on the ascendant squaring the 10th house planets. It's it's like that's what I love when I'm talking to someone or I'm having a conversation. I'm looking at someone's chart. It's like I don't even try to be the astrologer a lot of the times. It's like I just have to sit back and listen, and the person, like, they speak. I call it speaking the chart.
I call it living the chart. Like you just watch
Yeah,
someone, you can see the things going beep, boop,
yeah, yeah. But it is this interesting thing that as we experience whatever's going on archetypally, it's real. It's like it's a real experience. That's a real human experience. But sometimes we interpret it as it's everyone's experience. And in a sense, everyone at times has access to it. I think that's 100% valid. But that it's so deeply rooted in who someone is, and this, I like the question about acting and your response, Bonnie. It's like so, like, at the ground level of who you are, like that, just that story. I imagine, right, is that there's multiple times in your life where that issue came up over and over and over and over again. Right? You talk about the squares, and this is the square of all squares. It seems like this tight square between the moon in the first house and the sun in the 10th. It's like the need to be seen, but this sensitivity to the personal interaction.
Very much.
and like how to work through that, and even being attracted to showbiz. Like I love your answer, it's beautiful. And the thing that jumped out to me was the Neptune square the Venus, because to me that's showbiz, right? And I don't mean negative by square, I mean the discord, right? And the challenge and the
Right.
difficulty, and right, that showbiz is a culture that allows this to express itself.
Well, and I would say Neptune is Venus to the outers.
Yeah, 100%. And I say that Neptune is the higher octave of Venus.
There.
100%. Yep, saying the same thing.
Well, I know we're closing, but you mentioned eighth house, and I'm obsessed with where the eighth house is for showbiz people, because showbiz people don't make money in the second house; they make money in the eighth house.
Yep.
And so
Wow.
Bonnie, you're so good. We're gonna have you back.
Yes.
I will come back. I will come back. This is such a pleasure.
Interesting. Ricky, I just want to point out, how you thanked us today. It's so interesting because I was, as your producer, that like I was thinking this because like, I think if I was going to be Ricky's producer, I'd be like, it's about time for a thank you. Like if that were my producer note for you, like it's just weird because, but I would never would tell somebody, that it's time for that. But like the fact that you did this like poignant, heartfelt thank you, I was like, are you a dream? Are you from heaven? Like what is this, heaven on earth? Like, and then I just feel like that was so beautiful. Well, you don't need a producer.
I was
You're
trying to be a good listener. I do need a producer, but if you're tuned in, someone doesn't always have to say something vocally.
No, I love you, Ricky. I really want to say thank you to you as well. So,
And that's just great.
Thank you for letting me share space with y'all. Like I said, super fan here. I absolutely adore getting to share space with y'all and create things that hopefully other people will really enjoy.
well, Bonnie, I'm gonna get your book on self-management for actors, and then we're gonna have you on again, and we're gonna talk about your book. All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
See you next week.
All right.
Bye.